Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is said to have many different twists and turns, as well as surprises in this film by writer and director J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio. This is Mike Zero. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, one great thing about this movie that we do know is that J.J. Abrams is using this film as a course correction, as well as Disney and Lucasfilm, ever since the Solo: A Star Wars Story box office results and how it changed the next 10 years worth of Star Wars movies and their plan for the future of the franchise. So now, looking at Episode 9, we do know that they are treating this movie with great and special care in order to truly satisfy a majority of fans around the world. Now, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about this film when it all comes down to one of the concept art descriptions. This is where things begin to get very exciting and intriguing for this movie. Now, specifically, what's really interesting is that shot descriptions consisting of Kylo Ren sitting inside of his chambers, with his head down and over his head, where his arms are placed on top of his head, where it's described that he appears to be stressed and frustrated. It's described that in the background, many relics can be seen on multiple shelves on the wall, where one of which is described to be a skull inside of a glass that is in the shape of a cube, filled with murky liquid to preserve the bone. It's described to be the skull of Darth Vader that was retrieved from the melted helmet long ago, that was recovered from the acolytes of the Beyond that was eventually stolen by the Knights of Ren. It's said that this was an original idea by J.J. Abrams for the Force Awakens teaser trailer, where Kylo would dig through dirt discovering Vader's skull. However, that was scrapped for the Force Awakens trailer and replaced with the melted helmet. The next goes over a bowl in the background full of ashes that is described to be the ashes of Kylo Ren's victims, of those he killed during his time with the First Order and Snoke. It's unclear if any of these ashes are from Luke's next generation of Jedi. Additionally, it's described that the skull is obscure in the glass, however appears to be brown in color from it being burned. This isn't the first time fans have seen raw bone in a Star Wars film, such as Star Wars A New Hope showing Luke Skywalker's aunt and uncle burned down to the bone. So I want to go over a couple of parts about this, because this is where things begin to get very exciting for the movie, is that this seems like that this is JJ's way at attempting to make him a whole lot more darker than ever before in comparison to how he was in The Force Awakens and in The Last Jedi, which honestly is a great move. Now, the fact that Kylo owns the skull of Darth Vader is not only creepy, but it's also bringing us back to Star Wars A New Hope, giving us a parallel by bringing back bones and skulls and stuff like that into the Star Wars films. Now, is this too much for a Disney film? I know that was my first reaction is this too much for a Disney Star Wars movie? You know, to this day, Disney-wise, we haven't seen any, amputations, or should I say, dismemberments during their lightsaber battles. Now, sure, we've seen Snoke get cut in half, and sure, in the deleted scene, deleted by the way, we got to see Captain Phasma lose her hand, as well as Unkar Plutt losing his arm by the hands of Chewbacca in the Force Awakens deleted scene. But mind you, those were deleted scenes and were not included in the final cut of the movie. So it really does make one wonder, is this too much for a Disney Star Wars movie? That's the big question of all. Now, to me, I think that there's nothing wrong with it. We've seen this in The New Hope by George Lucas. It's a regular Star Wars film, kids watched it, no big deal, right? So, I will say that when I watched A New Hope as a kid, it was quite haunting, I will say, watching, the bones of Luke's aunt and uncle just smoking in the distance next to their home, next to the homestead on Tatooine. And what's really great about that moment, though, is that was the tipping point, right? That's exactly what pushed Luke in order to become a Jedi. He had no use for that world anymore. He had no use for living on Tatooine, so he moved on. So, what's the deal with Darth Vader's skull? Why is it here in the movie? Well, I don't think it's going to really serve any great purpose. I think that this is just a little fun Easter egg that JJ is throwing in the background, as it's described that this takes place in a moment where Kylo Ren is stressed and he appears to be frustrated in his chambers, and in the background it's described that you do see many of the belongings and personal items to Kylo Ren, as well as other relics of Darth Vader, one of which being the skull of Darth Vader himself that was taken from Endor by the Acolytes of the Beyond, that were eventually stolen by the Knights of Ren and handed back to Kylo. Now, it's unclear on how long Kylo Ren has had the skull of Vader. Is this something that he just retrieves in the, Episode 9, or has he had this well before the events of The Force Awakens when the Knights of Ren were actually still with Kylo, before they went on their mission back to the Beyond again? So, what I find very intriguing about this, though, is that this is a way, for sure, of J.J. Abrams making this movie very dark. Again, like I say, parts of this movie are described to be darker than that of Revenge of the Sith. And how darker could you get than literally showing the skull of Darth Vader in the background as Kylo Ren appears to be stressed and frustrated in his chambers. Seems to be a very dark and depressing moment for Kylo. Whatever his thoughts really are in this particular moment, we're not quite sure. But other than that, guys, let me know what you think about this whole entire sequence below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.